Hello, welcome back to Spellbound. I'm BJ the Book Witch, and this is my Peter Pan retellings wrap-up. Over the summer, I read 10 Peter Pan retellings out of a possible 18, and I can't wait to talk about them. So, summer is officially over, and I, for one, could not be happier. It is still over 100 degrees outside, but in my house, it's chilly and there are pumpkins. But before I start doing my spooky TBRs and autumn themes, I want to do a recap of one of the major themes that I read during those long, grueling summer months. And one of those themes was Peter Pan retellings. Now, I have been a Peter Pan snob my entire life, and I am not ashamed of it. Peter Pan is my favorite story of all time, and it has been for as long as I can remember. I have been able to connect to different aspects of this story from early childhood into adolescence and into adulthood in these really beautiful and profound ways. So I have been protective of what I have considered to be like a tax on the integrity of my favorite story, which is reasonable. So naturally, retellings that change or shape a main character into something totally different or even recognizable have always been a big no for me. And yes, that does include the incredibly popular among millennials, some might say a Spielberg classic, Hook. But for the month of August, I decided to put all of my big feelings aside about protecting Peter Pan and really lean into what some authors had to offer. And because I will be the first to admit that I am a very critical reviewer, especially in this regard, I have developed my own whimsical scale to help you decide if these books might just be for you. The scale categories are true to theme, quality of writing, and enjoyability. So each of these books will be rated on each of these three categories on a scale from 1 to 5. So let's start with the first one. Straight On Till Morning by K.J. Sutton. This retelling follows Wendy as she is sent to Neverland on an impossible mission, to kill Peter Pan. Now, I follow a lot of booktubers who really love K.J. Sutton, so I'm not going to make any kind of judgments about her writing based on this book alone, but this book really didn't do it for me. This book was unique from the others in the bunch in that it kept waffling between a 3 and 4 star. Like the pacing and the writing, it wasn't bad, but I thought that overall the plot did need some pretty hefty development and reworking, especially considering just how chunky it was. I'm not entirely sure that Sutton knew exactly where the plot was headed when she began writing, because the plot did do a lot of double takes and circle backs, and she would often write scenes and scenarios that would completely betray the characters that she was building. So in terms of my scale on quality of writing, that's going to be 3 out of 5 acorns. Not great, not bad, just okay. But the tone was neat. So this book was a lot less dreamlike than a lot of the others that I'm going to be talking about, and it was much more adventure focused, so much more on the ground narrative and lots more agency for Wendy. So I would say that's 4 out of 5 jars of pixie dust for enjoyability, even if I did feel frustrated at times. And then for true to theme, I did appreciate the use of direct quotes, not just from the book, but also from the Disney movie, from H.O.O.K, and from the 2003 Universal Studios version starring the main characters of my personal sexual awakening, Jeremy Sumpter and Jason Isaacs. So neat. The other very clever MacGuffin was the use of shadows in this book and how a character's shadow was completely personified and could in fact detach from a character's person given a very specific set of circumstances. So that was very cool. So I'd say 4.5 out of 5 clocks for true to theme. Now let's talk about the smutty retellings and get them out of the way. Hooked by Emily McIntire. This book, believe it or not, has a lot of those romantic mafia tropes. So Hook is out for his longtime revenge against his enemy, crime boss Peter Michaels. So when 22-year-old Wendy, Peter's daughter, shows up at James's bar, he thinks he's got the perfect leverage for his revenge. But during their courtship, he discovers a traitor in his midst, and he has to figure it out before he loses both his opportunity for revenge and his new darling Wendy. Now, quality of writing, markedly lower. Let's say 2.5 and round up to 3 acorns. But there was a surprising and delightful number of thematic elements. I'm not going to give away any of them here, but there are Easter eggs sprinkled throughout this entire book that in some cases actually help further the plot, and I really enjoyed stumbling upon those. So I would say 4 out of 5 clocks for that. And enjoyability, 5 out of 5 jars of pixie dust. Honestly, this book was everything you wanted from a Katie Robert novel. So it's no secret that I don't love Katie Roberts' books. I think she's fine. I just think that she writes straight up erotica and her plots are so loosely threaded that I could look at them twice and they would start to unravel, which again is fine. There's a market for that, clearly. But I am genuinely confused when I see other readers who are critical, heralding her books as amazing or as so well written, because truly, where? Anyway, my point is, if you were looking for something in A Worthy Opponent, and despite all of the gratuitous sex still didn't find it, I guarantee you will find it in this book. Perfectly enjoyable book candy. On a similar path, you've got the Never King series by Nikki St. Crowe. And everything that I just criticized Katie Robert for is in this series, which includes the Never King, the Dark One, and their vicious darling. Essentially, Wendy is a darling, obviously, but all darling women possess something in their blood that Peter needs to help break a curse in Neverland. So for centuries, Peter has kidnapped darling women on their 18th birthday, taken them to Neverland, and after 2 months, brought them back to the real world, completely insane and lobotomized. So that, but also a reverse harem with the pirate, the twins, and the crocodile. 1 out of 5 acorns for quality of writing. The plot does get there eventually, but by the time it shows up, are you even interested? There's plenty of other stuff to see. 1 out of 5 clocks for true to theme. There is no homage to the original story, just a good time. And 4 out of 5 jars of pixie dust for enjoyability, thriving on vibes alone. Now, let's take a more somber tone and talk about some more of the serious Peter Pan content we've got going on. Peter Darling by Austen Chant. So I first heard about this book from a book talker that I enjoy, Mel at Page Melt. In short, this is a transgender retelling of Peter Pan. Thematically, this is a clever take on Peter Pan, using Pan's transgender identity as the premise, but toxic masculinity as the lens through which we view the story. Incredibly thoughtful, an interesting story with a powerful viewpoint. The quality of writing is difficult to assess in such a simple and admittedly silly scale, because at the sentence level, Chant's writing is beautiful and rich with subtext. But as a whole, this book reads much more like a novella, and it's kind of unevenly paced and packs the punch right in the middle of the story and almost exclusively through dialogue. So I would say 3 out of 5 acorns for quality of writing. Chant does allude to many classic lines and quips, each in a subtly subverted way, so very clever use of the lines and symbols from this story. 4 out of 5 for true to theme. And honestly, it was just a great Peter Pan experience. So Peter Pan as a story is not a purely joyous experience. It is incredibly bittersweet in its entirety. The wonder and imagination is served in equal doses of reality and heartbreak. And to that end, I would give this book 5 out of 5 for enjoyability. And I would highly recommend this book to longtime fans of Peter Pan or simply for lost souls looking for a happy ending. Some of my favorite memories from my time and experience writing for Disney involve getting to work and write with some people who are now my closest friends. And one memory in particular was this little routine that we used to do to introduce ourselves on projects. So stereotypical or not, project kickoff meetings at Disney usually involve introducing yourself, your role on the project, and sharing your favorite Disney character and why. Now, my friend and I had a uniquely kindred spirit type of love for the story of Peter Pan. And she would always go first, and she would say her name, her role, and she would say that her favorite character is Peter Pan because of the joy and pixie dust and excitement that he can bring to a project, and that she can bring because of it. And then I would go next, and I would say that every great hero has a villain, and my favorite character is Captain Hook. I can appreciate that he has a singular goal in mind, and he never takes his eye off the clock, a distinctly organizational skill that I like to think that I possess within my role of a project as well. So It was honestly a cute little routine and one of my favorite Disney memories. So naturally, that friend recommended a Peter Pan retelling for me to read and include in this list, and that is Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This is a YA retelling of Peter Pan with Tiger Lily as the protagonist and Tinkerbell as the narrator. Now, it's months later, and I am still emotionally recovering from this. Now, all Peter Pan retellings, or most of them, if they're going to honor the intent of the original, are going to be a little heavy. And that's because the original story is heavy. Peter Pan deals with themes of child death, adolescence, the loss of innocence and youth, grief, and like a little sexuality. So all retellings are going to provide commentary or perspective on those things. This book did that, but it also added in layer after layer of nuance, power dynamics, colonization, the loss of first love, and the beauty and overwhelming grief of growing up. It is so good. Quality of writing, 5 out of 5 acorns. True to theme, 5 out of 5 clocks. And enjoyability, 5 out of 5 jars of pixie dust, but by God, have some tissues near you because this shit is intense. And it is real. Next, Lost Boy by Christina Henry. So I was on the fence with this one because I have read something by Christina Henry before. It was the story of like the P.T. Barnum mermaid scandal, and I remember not loving it, but I did love the tone. So Christina Henry's writing grabs you by the throat and does not let you go until the end. This book is somewhat of an origin story of H.O.O.K, trapped forever in a duel against time. H.O.O.K looks into the eyes of the crocodile of childhood cruelty and chooses a different fate. Quality of writing, 5 out of 5 acorns, easy. I read this book in one sitting. I don't think it would have been possible not to. Her writing is brutal and unflinching, and I was simply unable to put it down. Enjoyability, 5 out of 5 jars of pixie dust. Like I said, I could not put it down. True to theme, while this book does not chart the original narrative of Peter Pan the same way that Tiger Lily does, just with a unique lens, this book is a uniquely Lord of the Flies-esque character study into the backgrounds and motivations of these two iconic foes, Peter and H.O.O.K. So Christina Henry uses all of the themes and symbols of the original source material to paint a new perspective through H.O.O.K's eyes, and with a distinctly dispassionate lens, we see Peter for what he really is: gay and innocent and heartless. 5 out of 5 clocks. Never Never by Brianna Shrum. This retelling also follows Captain Hook, a dreamer, as he is stolen away to Neverland. This book had great sentence-level writing and emotional intensity, so 4 out of 5 acorns there. This book had really neat lore around dreams. So in this retelling, Pan had the ability to know when a child was a dreamer, and those are the children that he wanted in Neverland, because Neverland is shaped entirely by dreams. So James, for example, dreamt the pirates that are on Neverland from his own imagination because he wanted to sail away like his father. The Neverland in this book also explores the concept of fate and falling into roles that were prescribed for you, which is really neat and interesting because that mirrors Pan's own insecurities about the real world. So 3 out of 5 for true to theme. Kind of, but kind of not. However, that frustration around the concept of fate and how it affects the characters around our protagonist, I found to be more similar to Alice from Alice in Wonderland than anyone from Peter Pan. So instead of that concept of fate being a source of tension and a driving force of the agency of our main character to either act in accordance with or act and fight against, it really just continued to build in a helpless way, and it became almost suffocating in a way that I really didn't find to be enjoyable. But it also had a very slow-moving plot, which definitely helped build the emotional intensity, absolutely. But with such a small cast of characters and only 2 with any real depth, the book did drag on, and that affected the enjoyability. So 2 out of 5 jars of pixie dust for enjoyability. Great book, good writing, and great emotional intensity. This book was a study in anguish, while Lost Boy was a study in ruthlessness. But this book still could have lost like a few dozen pages and still been very okay. Finally, Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. So this book takes place in the real world and has real people as characters. Years after she and her brothers go missing in the woods, Wendy still wonders why she alone made it back and why she can't remember anything from her time away. But slowly her memories start to return as hazy dreams and connected to an acorn and a mysterious boy named Peter. While most of the books so far have been focused on H.O.O.K or Wendy or the brutality of Neverland or the grief and sorrow of growing up, this book offers a unique look at the character and purpose of Peter Pan and focuses almost exclusively on trauma and grief. 5 out of 5 acorns for quality of writing. While it wasn't layered and layered with subtext, this book was still written very well, shrouding the quick-moving plot with a mystery and a haziness that makes you question the narrator almost as much as she questions herself. 5 out of 5 clocks for true to theme. Now, obviously this isn't exactly a retelling, but this was the only book of the bunch that really tried to tackle this sadness of the character of Peter and what exactly he is meant to represent in the original story. And 5 out of 5 jars of pixie dust for enjoyability. I read this book in one sitting and cried throughout the entire third act. Incredibly good. So those were the retellings that I was able to get to. I had every intention of reading closer to 14 or 15 books out of the 18 that I selected, but you've got to understand, Peter Pan retellings are incredibly heavy, especially if they're done right. So I think that making it to 10 was still pretty good. That being said, if you're still looking for more Peter Pan retellings from my list or looking to add to yours, here are some that I just haven't gotten to yet. Unhooked by Lisa Maxwell. This story follows Gwen and her best friend Olivia as they are kidnapped by shadows and dragged away to Neverland. She tries to navigate who to trust in this strange world where your memories disappear, the charming friend of the fairies or the captivating pirates. This sounds like a classic YA type of adventure story, and I am looking forward to it. Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise. Marketed as a feminist retelling of Peter Pan, this one follows Wendy all grown up when Peter Pan comes to the window for her daughter Jane. Wendy must fight her way to Neverland and then face the truth in the heart of the island. I feel like this one might deal with themes of sexual assault, and so I haven't been quite ready for this one yet. The P.A.N, the H.O.O.K, and the C.R.O.C by Jenny Hickman. This trilogy is a bit on the sci-fi side for me, it sounds like, as this is a world where some individuals possess the Never gene. And if you're found to have the Never gene, then you're like spirited away into the humanitarian organization for order and knowledge. Yep. Anyway, our main character's only option out of that fate is to run away to Kensington Gardens and learn to fly with the P.A.N. Darling Girl by Liz Michalski. So this one sounds a little similar to Wendy Darling, at least to me, and at least thematically. So in this one, Holly, Wendy's grandmother, is all grown up, and Peter has just kidnapped their daughter Aiden. And Aiden has a rare genetic condition that causes her to age rapidly, which is weird considering Peter is her father, somehow. But anyway, Holly has to work to save her daughter before she's discovered. So this book has been all over BookTube recently. I haven't seen any reviews for it yet, but it was really popular because it was included in a recent Book of the Month box, so it is a recent release. I don't know about it yet. It sounds like there's lots of motherhood vibes, which are neat, but they just don't really resonate with me. And An Awfully Big Adventure by Beryl Bainbridge. So this book is much less a retelling and more of just a study and homage to the themes and symbols present in the original story. This one follows an orphan from Liverpool who auditions to be in her local community's production of Peter Pan. There she is quickly smitten with the director until the acclaimed and famous actor shows up back to his hometown to star in this production. There is a movie adaptation of this starring Hugh Grant as the director and Alan Rickman as the acclaimed actor. I will tell you 0 more things about this book/movie because it is a discovery that you truly must experience for yourself. So I guess that wraps us up. This has been a wrap up of 10 Peter Pan retellings with a recommendation of 7 more. If you've read any of these, or if you have a recommendation for others, please let me know in the comments below. There are few things in this world I like talking about more than Peter Pan. So take care and get ready for spooky season, but in the meantime, happy reading.